In this customer use case, we're going to look at an example where Gluware implements a port tracker through a custom script with ServiceNow integrations. This particular customer requirement wanted to automate the process of checking switch port activity. And if the ports are inactive for a specified time, change them to admin down for security concerns. In addition, automate the approval cycle for the change management in ServiceNow, their ITSM, through API calls from Gluware. So in the implementation, Gluware implemented a custom script referred to the port tracker, which leverages the power of the orchestration engine and declarative engine to run on demand or scheduled to check port activity throughout the network of switches. When a port is unused, when they are identified as being unused, open an approval ticket in ServiceNow for change management tracking. Once the approval is provided in ServiceNow, automate the process to change the configuration and admin down the unused ports, and then close a change ticket in ServiceNow for tracking. So essentially, Gluware is operating the automation and orchestration layer, automating the switches down through CLI-driven infrastructure, happens to be Cisco switches, and is performing API integration up into the management plane to automate ServiceNow. Let's take a look at the demonstration.
So what I have here, I'm going to show you an example of customers asking us to help them with tracking down switch port that are not used, that are not shut down, and potentially could be a security risk. So I have this switch here that I can show you. And on this switch here, I'm going to show you that amongst all these different switch ports that I have here, I have potentially 1, 2, 3, 4 switch ports that potentially could be, there could be no good reasons for them to stay in that state, right? I'm going to show you how we are tracking those ports. And there's this particular, tracker that we have here, which allow us to, literally track on any device, any switch here, that over a period of time that you can define here, weeks, days, hours, etc. So just for the sake of this demo, of course, I'm just putting seconds here. How you can track all these different switch ports, and if they haven't produced any activity during those, here 5 seconds, I will trigger an action to shut them down and or enforce a default configuration change on those switch ports. The thing that I would like to do is I don't want this tracker to just execute that change when it can find some potential candidate switch port that might need to be shut down. So here I'm asking to integrate with this particular instance of ServiceNow. This is my instance that I'm going to show in a second. And that this tracker will have a tight integration with a change request issued by Gluware on this particular instance of ServiceNow. And it's going to, listen up, how those change requests are going from pending to approved, and will only perform the change when approved. So I haven't started tracking on these ports yet, so I'm going to run this particular tracker on this node here. So what I'm doing here, I am going to trigger this custom script, and note that this is just for the demo purposes, that I am running this manually. But what you can do is that you can put this around the clock. So you have something that can run every hour, for instance. And you would want to do this on the tracker because the reason is you want to set this up and forget it and have Gluware monitoring those ports and only interact with you through change request in ServiceNow. So let me run this script. And I'm going to just do this, once here. And this is going to start tracking those ports. So nothing's going to happen in ServiceNow. So while it's doing this, and I'm putting the log window here so that you can see what the engine is doing, I'm going to show you my ServiceNow instance that right now is, a traditional ServiceNow instance. There's nothing special here other than the default, some default, changes right now on this particular view here. And you can see that, the engine is literally going through looking at switch ports that potentially have been inactive over the period that you have defined in the tracker. And you can see that you have these 4 ports that I highlighted earlier here, which are potentially, not producing anything, right? 5, 7, 9, and 21. So there's no existing tracking found right now, because that's the first time I'm running this tracker. And so nothing happens, and nothing is created in ServiceNow for now. I mean, the monitoring starts, and now the tracker will look at the inactivity of these ports. And as soon as these ports inactivity period is greater than the one that you have defined in the policy, then it will literally start producing some change request here. So let's run this script again. And you're going to see that in ServiceNow now, because it has increased the time that I would tolerate this with those switch ports these switch ports to be inactive, I should see now change request coming my way on ServiceNow. So let's look at that together. And you can see that tracking inactive switch port, right? Remember, we found 5, 7, 9, and 21. And you can find that, tracking started in that, around that time. And then you have those candidate switch ports 5, 7, 9, and 21. And then we're literally engaging with ServiceNow now. And it created 1, 2, 3, 4 change requests. So let's look at that. Oops. And you can see I have those 4 change requests here. Okay. And let's interact with this particular change request. And you can see that Gluware has, created this change request on the category network and says the change request is about changing the switch ports, from down to admin down because it's literally in not connect for too long. Okay. And so this script, remember, this tracker would run around the clock, and nothing happens until those change requests are in the approved state. So let's do that. Okay, I'm gonna literally go through the process of approving. The change management is going to be assessed. So the ticket moved to assessed, and I've got that person that literally going to approve that this is a change that makes sense. Then it goes through the board approval for a change, going to approve that. And from a scheduling standpoint, I'm going to define a change window here where I would allow Gluware to perform that change. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to run implement. As soon as this ticket is going implement, and again, just because of for this demo, I'm running this manually, but it would happen automatically when this tracker is automatically attached to a node and to run every 10 minutes or something. So you can look at this particular state. Not the entire UI of ServiceNow is dynamic, but this particular checkbox is. So you're going to see that this particular ticket is going to move from implements to review as the changes have been performed. You can see it wants to review automatically. And when I'm looking at what happened, you can see that port 5, obviously, so let me move this thing slowly. You can see that the change request for candidate switch port 5 has been approved. It's in the implement state, and this is why now it's literally defaulting the config and disabling the port as requested, in my policy. And the 3 other ports do not change because they're still in the pending state. It's not been approved yet, right? And so now I can go and close this ticket, say it was successful, blah, blah, blah. And I'm updating this ticket. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to close it instead. Close this ticket. So now it's closed. And when this script will run again, then the tracking will stop. And because this port now is not in the not connect state anymore, right? It's been admin shut. You're going to see that the tracking stops. So the idea is that you can put this tracker around the clock to be able to track all your switch ports and interact with Gluware through the change request in ServiceNow. So now, how am I doing this integration? So just to show you that this is, that tracking is stopped because the ticket, the change request here, has been closed, right? So how have I done this integration? So we've shown you Gluware Lab before, and this is, for instance, how I'm showing how we integrate an API. These are the changes that I needed in order to interact with ServiceNow. I only needed, amongst all the available calls, the hundreds of calls available in the API, these were the only calls that I needed in order to interact with it. So it's literally one line, one call. And so just to give you an example of interaction here, I'm going to use two calls here, and you can see it's one line, one call. And I've just got a simple script to show you that this interaction can be done with that few little of scripting lines here, which is literally I'm creating a normal change request, getting the sys ID. This is what ServiceNow is asking to use to interact with any object through their API. And I'm going to update it to just literally produce this short description and description for this change request. So just to show you, back here, there is nothing called onug in the change request. I'm running this particular script here. And once this is done, you can see if I refresh the page now, you can see I have now this change request onug that appeared, which obviously includes my onug. So this concludes what I wanted to show you and how quickly we can integrate with third-party APIs in Gluware.